Hello, everybody. Coach Ted here. I don't know if I'm as dark as I look in the screen I'm looking at, but hi, I'm Coach Ted, also known as Ted Bear, and I'm your ADHD life coach, and I love helping you get organized and productive so that you can enjoy life. And today we're talking about overcoming procrastination, the reasons we procrastinate. Last week I talked about some of the costs and benefits of procrastination, uh, which are very significant in being able to be motivated to change. Well, that's the whole reason we're talking about this, right? Is because that procrastination habit is getting in our way of having the life that we want, feeling successful, getting done what we want to get done, having the relationships we want to have, having the health we want to have. All those things depend on being able to focus and plan and make decisions, and all of those things are challenging for those of us with ADHD. So anyway, today we're talking about some of the causes, the reasons we procrastinate. I want to start by reading you something I ran across recently called the Procrastinator's Code. I must be perfect. Everything I do should go easily and without effort. It is safer to do nothing than to take a risk and fail. I should have no limitations. If it's done right, it's not worth doing at all. If it's not done right, it's not worth doing at all. I must avoid being challenged. If I succeed, someone will get hurt. If I do well this time, I must always do well. Following someone else's rules means I'm giving in and not in control. I can't afford to let go of everything or anyone. There is a right answer, and I'll wait until I find it. If I expose my real self, people won't like me. I will not put in my best effort, so if I do poorly, I'll be able to tell myself that if I had worked harder, I could have done better. The Procrastinator's Code. So, why do we talk about reasons of procrastination? Because if we want to change, we need to know why we do it. And there are many different reasons that we procrastinate. They all are at some psychological level. Some can be pretty deep. But we have to understand why we're doing it if we're going to change. So today we're going to talk about reasons. I don't know if I'm going to get through all of them that I want to talk about. And then if I don't, we'll finish up next week, and then we'll talk about strategies, which I know is what you're really wanting to hear, but this stuff is really critical. So, right now when we avoid a task, we may sort of pause for a second, and then we just move on doing something that we want to do, that we enjoy doing. We get sort of lost in another task in the internet, until the stuff hits the fan. And then we go like, why do I do this? Why do I keep putting things off? Why do I keep creating trouble for myself? And we know as this scenario plays out again and again that this avoidance response is not helpful. But it makes sense that why we're sidestepping things. The executive functions of the brain, those things, the planning, the decision making, the organizing, the prioritizing, all those things are quote unquote impaired. The ADHD brain is different, and those things are challenging for us. It makes it tougher to separate things into smaller tasks. Starting things becomes overwhelming. ADHD has been described as a disorder of motivation. And here's a quote from an article I read. The brain has difficulty motivating itself to do tasks, and it's also difficult for it to tear itself away from other tasks. And those of us with ADHD, we don't procrastinate because we enjoy it. It's a way to avoid discomfort. So let's get into some of the reasons we procrastinate. So the first one I want to talk about is problems getting started. For those of us with ADHD, getting started is often very difficult. We get distracted by outside stimuli as well as our internal thoughts. It can be difficult just to get to the starting line. Sometimes figuring out where to start is the challenge. You just may be unsure about what to do. The task may have kind of fuzzy boundaries which prevent us from really understanding what needs to be done. Or you may have trouble knowing where to start because you're finding it difficult to break the task down into smaller parts. What can get in the way and lead to putting off a task is just not clear about some aspect of the task, like what the very next action is, even where to start, how to do some part of the task, what it will look like when it's done, what your objective is, or what the criteria for making decisions about the task are along the way. So all these things, all these ADHD challenges with organization come into play as we struggle to prioritize, plan, sequence tasks that we need to do to get started. We need to know about how to do these things. And so we just, put off whatever it is we're doing. The task may seem too complex. It's another thing that can get in the way and cause us to put off things. So, not getting started. That's not knowing how to start, having trouble starting, is one reason we procrastinate. A second one, which I'm sure you're familiar with, is the task is boring or uninteresting. If it doesn't appeal to us, if it's not engaging, if it's not fun, interesting, challenging in a good way, it's like, forget about it. Or we say, forget about it. And, it's difficult for the brain of someone with ADHD to get stimulated unless the activity is interesting, or there are major consequences, or there's a sense of urgency. So, and then this lack of interest leads to avoidance of the task in favor of doing something that's much more interesting or fun. Yeah? You're familiar with that, right? Boring or uninteresting. Great reason to procrastinate. Not, but it is a reason we do procrastinate. Okay, getting sidetracked. Another thing that can happen to us that causes us to procrastinate. And one thing I want to mention here, this is sort of a side note. This ADHD thing is called attention deficit disorder. Hey, Ron Sturt, nice to have you here. Thanks for coming. So, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or attention deficit disorder, is a real misnomer. It's not about attention deficit. Yes, there are definitely challenges with paying attention to certain kinds of things. We was talking about something that's boring, uninteresting. It's really attention regulation, because we can get very attentive to something that we're interested in. You've heard of hyperfocus. That's like major attention. So it's really another better way to think about it is the problem is attention regulation, how we regulate our attention. So I just wanted to bring that in here because I think it's important to realize that it's the name of it's not right. And then there's the whole other question about it being a disorder, not. No, but we won't go there today. Okay, getting sidetracked. So what can happen is even if we're able to get started, we can find we quickly get sidetracked. Again, Something we find is more interesting. Our thoughts lead us. The shiny penny goes by. Um, it's difficult for us to regulate our attention. So, it's easy to get distracted. All those distractions, all those interruptions. And to say, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. Somebody called procrastination, what was it? Is it the tomorrow, something, I can't, sorry about that. Something about tomorrow, but so we say, yeah, I'll do it tomorrow. The problem is that tomorrow never comes, and so we don't actually do it. Let's see. We can, so if we don't find it interesting or enjoyable, we can put it off to the last minute. And then we get into that stressful mode of trying to get it done at the last minute, and we either end up not completing it, or we just don't do a very good job, though we get it done. But and then there's the distractions, external distractions, internal distractions. The phone rings, somebody comes by our desk, wants to talk to us, has a question, or wants to chat, or we decide we need to get up and get a cup of coffee, or we need to check our Facebook, we need to check email. So we interrupt ourselves, and then we lose track, and then something just doesn't get done. And as I said, there's that shiny penny going by, and then our attention goes with it, and we're gone, and we're not doing what we set out to do. And then I want to talk about one more thing. I don't want to make this too long a video. There's lots to talk about here. So a sense of paralysis and feeling overwhelmed. So we can definitely experience a painful sense of paralysis when the task just seems too big. It feels too overwhelming. We want to get started, but we just can't get going or make progress because of this feeling of overwhelm. It just seems too big. It's this immense, sheer immensity of the task. And we get overwhelmed by all the thoughts of what we have to do. There's anxiety when we feel overwhelmed, and that anxiety kind of gets stirred up, and we don't like feeling an anxiety. So what do? We go off, we put the anxiety aside by doing something else that's not anxiety producing, and we say, well, I can come back to this later. There's another reason we get overwhelmed, and that's because we feel like we don't know how we're going to do everything we have to do. Too much on our plate. We've taken on too much. We have trouble saying no to people. So again, it's like I said earlier, procrastination is about not wanting to feel discomfort. And it's very uncomfortable, like being worried about, can I get everything done? And my gosh, I have all this to do. How am I going to get it done? And it's like, oh, let me check my email. Let me see what's happening on Facebook. And then we're down the rabbit hole. So I think I'm going to stop there. I hope that's been useful. We'll talk about some additional causes and reasons for procrastination next week at the same time. Thanks for joining me today. Again, I'm Coach Ted, your ADHD life coach, and I love helping people get organized and productive so they can enjoy life. And so today we discussed some of the reasons that people procrastinate. Please remember to comment here with #connect if you want to connect further, and I'll get right back to you and be in touch and set something up. You're welcome, Ronster. Thanks for being here. I have a gift for you today. document called The Reasons We Procrastinate. And if you want to get a copy of that, click on the link below. I'll be adding this as soon as I finish this video. If you're watching in replay, please type in hashtag replay in a comment so I know that you've been here. And tune in next Wednesday, noon Eastern Time, again for Overcoming Procrastination Part 3. And as I said, I'll be doing these Facebook Lives every Wednesday at noon Eastern Time, unless I've changed my mind. So that's it for today. Over and out. Have a great rest of the day. Take care. Bye-bye.